Snow fell like powdered glass the night my mother decided I was dead to her. Inside that perfect Vermont dining room, Waterford crystal polished silver, a family rehearsing affection, she drew a line across 30 years of obedience with one sentence: "If you leave, don't come back." I was 31, a journalist offered the biggest break of my career, and suddenly every choice I'd ever made felt like evidence. What do you do when the person who raised you becomes the story you must tell? Find out how far one daughter goes to reclaim her voice. Like, share, comment, and subscribe to us. We always appreciate the time you have with us. The Collins family Christmas dinner could have been cut straight from a Vermont tourism ad, snow falling in perfect slow motion, candlelight reflected on glass ornaments, the kind of polished warmth that only exists when everyone's pretending to be fine. I've seen crime scenes with less choreography. The table stretches like a runway of restraint. Waterford crystal lined up like soldiers, silver polished so bright I can see a warped version of myself in every spoon. The linen napkin on my lap feels heavier than fabric should, like I'm holding the family's expectations in cotton form. Mom Maren Whitaker sits at the head of the table, a general disguised as a hostess. Every movement is deliberate: the way she folds her napkin, the precise angle of her wine glass, the way she lowers her voice half a decibel when she wants to make someone feel small. Across from her, Paige glows under the chandelier, a living endorsement of Vivian's legacy. Her diamond ring catches the light every time she gestures, which is often. Mom has mentioned her fiancé's Harvard Law credentials twice already, once before the soup and once after the salad. I give it another 10 minutes before she works in a third reference, maybe tied to dessert. Paige's firm is representing the Burlington Redevelopment Council, Mom says, casually carving her turkey into symmetrical slices. It's nice to see young people taking initiative. Real work. The word real lands on my plate like a stone. I smile the way people do in hostage videos. That's great, Mom. Speaking of work, she continues as if the thought just came to her. How's the paper still writing those cute little feature pieces? Across the table, my boyfriend Liam freezes mid-cut. He's a photographer, tall, soft-spoken, allergic to pretense, and he knows the tone. He squeezes my knee under the table, a small grounding pressure that says, "Don't bite." "They're going well," I answer. My editor liked the opioid series. It got some traction. Traction, Mom repeats, tasting the word like it's undercooked. Isn't that a bit heavy for a lifestyle section? It's investigative, I correct softly. And it helped the county pass new prescription monitoring laws. She doesn't respond. She reaches for her cranberry sauce instead, her bracelet glinting under the chandelier. The silence stretches until Dad clears his throat and asks Paige's opinion about real estate zoning, because of course he does. Dad's role at this table has always been the same, the peacekeeper who never actually keeps peace, just delays it. He pours wine, tells mild jokes, and watches the emotional bloodshed with quiet resignation. When I was 12, he told me once that Mom's strength kept the family together. I believed him until I realized together just meant contained. From my seat, I can see the sideboard Mom's trophies of taste. Her phone lies face down, but I can feel its presence like a surveillance camera. She never turns it off. Even now, its screen lights up every few minutes, a silent pulse of incoming validation. Beside it sits a crisp place card from the Morrison Family Health Initiative, her foundation. The embossed logo gleams like authority itself. Under it, I spot a folded program half tucked into her clutch. The title peeks out: Rural Recovery Clinic Board Vote. Jan 4. Pass the gravy, sweetheart, she says. I do careful not to clink the dish. There are rules about noise here. Liam tries to make small talk, bless him. This roast is incredible, Mrs. Whitaker. I've never had turkey so tender. Mom smiles, approving but cool. I find that following directions exactly tends to yield good results. He chuckles politely, not realizing that was a sermon in disguise. Paige hides a grin behind her water glass. Dinner rolls on in carefully measured increments. Compliments must sound spontaneous but not excessive. Politics are off limits unless Mom can win. Every utensil must land silently on china. It's not a meal, it's theater, and everyone knows their cue. By dessert, my stomach feels knotted from the performance. Outside, the snow drifts against the bay window in soft mounds. Inside, the air is taut heavy with unspoken evaluations. Liam reaches for my hand again under the table. His thumb moves in small circles against my palm, steady as breath. He doesn't need to say anything. I can feel him counting the seconds with me. I glance at the mantel clock. 10 minutes to 9. If I can make it that long without saying something honest, I'll have survived another Whitaker Christmas. Then I make the mistake of catching Mom's eye. So she says, laying down her fork with surgical precision, "What's next for you, Maren?" I know what she means. I could tell her about the job offer waiting in my inbox, features editor Portland Herald, but I also know the cost. The last time I mentioned moving out of state, she cried for 3 days and told the extended family I was having a quarter-life breakdown. Still, I'm tired of hiding my progress like contraband. Actually, I begin, "There's something," Paige interrupts with a laugh, brushing her hair off her shoulder. "Oh, Mom, did you tell her about the gala next month? You'll love it, Maren. It's for the foundation. Maybe you could cover it for your little column." There it is, the friendly knife. I smile thinly. Maybe. Though I might be in Maine by then. The shift is instant. Mom's expression doesn't change, but the air does, like a current reversing direction. Maine. For work. The Herald offered me an editor position. I haven't accepted yet, but if you chase this Portland thing, she says, voice quiet, cutting through the air like a blade through silk. Don't come back. The words hit harder because she doesn't raise her voice. She doesn't need to. For a second, no one moves. Paige's smile freezes mid-laugh. Dad's hand trembles as he sets down his wine glass. Liam's knee stops bouncing. The only sound is the grandfather clock ticking in the hallway, steady, merciless. I stare at her, trying to read whether she means it. But of course she does. Vivian Whitaker never says anything she doesn't mean. That's her brand. Snow keeps falling outside, peaceful and oblivious. Inside, everything still glitters: the crystal, the candles, the family. But I see the cracks in the glass now, hairline fractures catching the light. Mom raises her champagne flute in a silent toast, eyes locked on mine. "To family," she says. Her ring flashes. The silverware gleams. And somewhere between the tick of the clock and the clink of crystal, something inside me finally fractures back. For a moment, after Mom's words land, nobody breathes. The chandelier hums faintly, crystal prisms trembling in the silence. Dad studies his green beans like they hold a legal precedent he can cite to make this go away. Paige's fork clatters against her plate, then stills. The smell of rosemary and butter turns metallic in the air. I hear my own heartbeat louder than the ticking clock. "What did you say?" I ask, though I already know. Mom's expression doesn't waver. "You heard me, Maren." Her tone is soft, deliberate, the voice of someone giving instructions she expects to be followed. "If you take that job in Maine, if you walk away from your family's legacy for some small-town newspaper nonsense, you're dead to me." She wipes her mouth with her napkin like she just said, "Pass the salt." Dad finally looks up, his eyes small and tired behind his glasses. "Vivian." "No," she says sharply, slicing through his attempt at mediation. "Enough indulgence. She's 30 years old and still playing reporter. When will you grow up and contribute something real?" Mom Paige murmurs a half-hearted protest, but she doesn't look at me. She looks at Mom, seeking permission to speak. I stare at the flicker of the candles reflected in the silverware. My hands are steady, but only because I'm holding onto the edge of the table. The Herald is one of the best regional papers in New England. They loved my series on the opioid crisis. They offered. She cuts me off with a laugh so small and sharp it feels like glass. "A pity promotion. They want your trauma porn. Congratulations, dear, you're becoming a cliché." The blood drains from my face. I don't know if it's humiliation or fury, maybe both. I glance at Liam. His jaw tightens, but he doesn't speak. He just watches me, ready if I need him, but trusting me to decide. I take a slow breath. You don't have to understand, Mom, but you don't get to insult it. She sets her wine glass down carefully, the stem clicking against the table. Don't tell me what I get to do. You will not make a spectacle of this family's name in the press again. That story wasn't about our family, I say, my voice trembling despite my effort to hold it steady. It was about people dying in the county you claim to help with your foundation. Her eyes flash. Don't turn this into some moral crusade. Everything I've done, everything was to build a reputation that protects you girls. Protects us. The laugh that leaves me sounds wrong even to my ears, or controls us. Her face hardens into something unrecognizable. If you leave Vermont for that paper, you are no daughter of mine. The words don't sound human. They sound rehearsed, honed on years of unspoken rules. Paige makes a small sound, a whimper, or a warning I can't tell. I push my chair back. The legs scrape against the hardwood, a sound that feels like a door opening and slamming shut at once. The napkin in my lap, her perfect linen crisp and starched. I fold it once, twice, then set it beside my plate like a surrender flag I refuse to wave. Then I guess that's goodbye. Mom's eyebrows lift a fraction. Don't be dramatic, Maren. You'll be back when you need something. Maybe, I say, but it won't be from you. The room hums with shock. Even Paige looks startled that I'm not folding like I always do. Dad's lips move, but no sound comes. He takes refuge in his wineglass again. The man who taught me fairness can't even look at me while injustice plays out at his own table. I turn to Liam. Ready. He nods once. We stand together, but not as a couple escaping a fight, more like witnesses leaving a scene after giving testimony. I feel everyone's eyes on my back as I walk to the front hall. The click of my heels against the wood feels too loud, like punctuation at the end of a confession. At the coat rack, my fingers fumble with the buttons. The air outside leaks in through the doorframe, sharp with cold and pine. My heart hammers, but beneath the fear is something steadier, a small, quiet pulse of relief. When I open the door, the night air hits like baptism. Snow drifts through the porch light, flakes catching in my hair. I hear the muffled clink of silverware behind me, then nothing. Halfway down the steps, the door opens again. Maren, wait. Liam's voice. He joins me, pulling his coat tighter. His breath fogs in the air between us. You don't have to decide everything tonight. I look at him, at the man who sat through every subtle humiliation at that table without flinching. He doesn't try to fix it, he just stands beside me. That's what love looks like. I think witness, not rescue. I already did, I say. My voice sounds strange, calmer than it should. I'm done begging for permission to live my own life. He steps closer, brushing a snowflake from my cheek. You sure? I'm sure. Behind us, the house glows like a museum, beautiful, curated, empty. Through the window, I can see Mom still seated at the table, posture perfect, pouring herself more wine. From this distance, she looks smaller, not powerless, just human. Liam opens the car door for me. The interior smells like pine and heat. As he starts the engine, I glance one last time at the bay window. Mom's silhouette moves past it, then vanishes. The driveway is slick tire tracks cutting dark lines through the snow. As we pull onto the road, the headlights carve a path through the white silence. I rest my forehead against the cold window, watching the house shrink in the rearview mirror until it's just another glowing dot among the trees. I thought leaving would feel like losing everything, family history, the illusion of safety. But as we drive farther from the house, my chest feels lighter, like air returning after years of compression. The radio hums low static between stations. Liam's hand finds mine across the console, steady and warm. I don't know what comes next, I admit. You don't have to, he says. You just have to keep driving. The snow thickens, swallowing the road behind us. For the first time, the future doesn't feel like an enemy. It feels like a place I might finally belong. I close my eyes and exhale, letting the last thread of my mother's voice unravel in the dark. I thought I lost a mother. What I actually lost was a warden. My apartment looks like an evidence room. Bankers' boxes line the walls labeled in neat handwriting, "Take, donate, burn if sentimental." Sticky notes bloom across every surface in color-coded precision. Yellow for logistics, pink for finances, blue for freedom. The sound of packing tape stretches and snaps through the quiet, a kind of rhythm I can control. The morning after Christmas, I started what I called Operation Independence Protocol. It began with practicalities, new bank accounts at a credit union 2 towns over, a credit freeze to block identity-linked access, and a new phone plan not tied to the family's Whitaker discount. The customer service rep asked if I wanted to transfer my number. I told her no. I wanted a clean line free of history. When she handed me the receipt, it felt like a passport stamp out of captivity. Next came the address. I rented a post office box and set up a forwarding order that excluded my parents' zip code. The clerk, a woman in a red sweater with kind eyes, didn't know she was a witness to emancipation. I wanted no letters forwarded, no accidental breadcrumbs home. Every keystroke, every signature, became a small act of rebellion, measured in bureaucracy. By mid-afternoon, the adrenaline ebbed, leaving exhaustion in its wake. I brewed coffee and opened my laptop for my first virtual session with Dr. Alana Kerr. Liam had found her through a friend in his photography network specializes in family systems and trauma. Her face appeared on my screen, framed by warm lamplight and bookshelves crowded with color-coded spines. "Tell me what brings you here, Maren," she said. Her voice was calm, low-pitched, unhurried. I told her about the Christmas dinner, about the ultimatum, about walking into the snow. But mostly, I told her about the pattern years of being rewarded for compliance and punished for authenticity. She nodded, taking notes. "What you're describing," she said, "is conditional love, reinforced through reputation control. Your mother uses image as currency. When you challenge her narrative, she sees it as an existential threat." It was strange hearing someone describe my family like a case study instead of a moral failing. Dr. Kerr continued, "You also mentioned your father avoids conflict. That's triangulation. He mediates through silence, which preserves her power. It's a closed loop." "Reputation warfare," I murmured, writing it down. "Exactly. In families like yours, perception is the battlefield." Something in me unclenched, not because I liked the diagnosis, but because it fit. Finally, there were words for the fog I lived in. After the call, I sat in the quiet, staring at my reflection in the laptop's dark screen. Behind me, the sticky notes glowed like little lighthouses. "You're not crazy," I thought. "You're just finally naming the pattern." That night, Liam came over with takeout and a bottle of ginger ale. He moved carefully through the maze of boxes, setting the food on the floor. "You're building a launch pad," he said, smiling faintly. "It's chaos, but it's beautiful." He told me about 2 photojournalists he knew in Portland, a couple named Josh and Delia, who freelanced for the Herald. "They could introduce you to the team, help you get your bearings. Sophie's there too." Remember Sophie Tran. From my old assignment in Portland. "She's got a spare room." I hadn't seen Sophie since grad school. We used to trade late-night edits and bad Chinese takeout. She'd understand the leap I was making. 2 months rent-free, Liam said. "She said she likes having company, just until you find your own place." The generosity nearly undid me. "I'll owe her forever," he shook his head. "You'll pay it forward." That's how decent people survive. Later, after he left, I sat surrounded by the detritus of my old life. Framed degrees, clipped articles, 1,000 tiny reminders that I'd built a resume to impress the wrong audience. I opened the closet, dragging out a stack of old journals, every volume from college onward. My handwriting evolved from looping optimism to neat defensive precision. Flipping through the pages was like watching myself disappear in slow motion. Junior year, age 20. Mom says pre-law would give me more options. Journalism's fine as a hobby. Age 22. Changed my major back to journalism anyway. She stopped talking to me for 2 weeks. Age 25. Turned down a DC fellowship, because she said the city was dangerous. Age 27. Broke off engagement to Ben after mom said his teaching job wasn't ambitious enough. Every choice had come with strings attached disguised as advice. I'd thought independence was something you earned through achievement, but it turned out you had to claim it even if it cost you everything. By the time I reached the most recent journal, my eyes burned. The final entry before Christmas read Mom's proud of Paige's engagement announcement, front page of the Vermont Society Journal. She said she can finally stop worrying about how we look. I closed the book with a sound like a door clicking shut. At midnight, I sat cross-legged on the floor, surrounded by boxes and memories. Outside, snow drifted against the window. My phone buzzed a voicemail notification from an unknown number. When I played it, my father's voice filled the room. "Maren, it's Dad. Your mother's telling people you're unstable, that you're acting out. I tried to reason with her, but, well, you know your mother." He sighed. "Maybe call her before she makes it worse. Please, just think about what you're doing." The line clicked dead. I stared at the screen until it went black. A pulse of anger rose in my throat, hot then cold. She was already rewriting the story. Unstable. The word slid under my skin like a splinter. I opened my laptop to distract myself, checking emails, deleting junk. Then another notification blinked across my screen, an incoming text from an unknown number. Attached was a screenshot of a Facebook post. The caption read, "Sad to see talented people lose their way. Hoping Maren Whitaker finds the help she needs." The sender's name was familiar, Linda Avery, one of Mom's foundation donors. I stared at the screen until the letters blurred. The campaign had already begun. I closed the laptop slowly, heartbeat steadying into resolve. The boxes loomed like sentinels around me, silent and waiting. Let her tell whatever story she wants. I was finally writing my own. The Portland Herald newsroom hums like a beehive, phones ringing, printers spitting out drafts, reporters arguing over headlines. I should feel small in the chaos, but instead, I feel alive. My desk sits near the window where the light from the bay cuts through the gray morning like a blade. The air smells like old coffee and ink, a mix that feels more honest than perfume and crystal. My first week passes in a blur of story meetings and orientation briefings. Frank Webster, my new editor, is sharp and dryly funny, a man who believes competence is the only resume that matters. "You write clean," he told me on my first day. "You ask good questions. Don't let anyone make you apologize for that." I took the words home like a blessing. On Thursday, the phone rings while I'm editing a piece about small-town broadband access. "Ms. Whitaker." The receptionist's voice crackles through the intercom. "There's a Catherine Morrison on line 2 for you." Catherine Morrison. As in the Morrison Family Health Initiative, the foundation that bankrolls half the state's community health programs, including my mother's. My pulse jumps. "Put her through." "Ms. Whitaker." Catherine begins, her tone measured, professional. "I just received a rather concerned phone call from your mother, Vivian. She implied you might be planning to write about her foundation and that you've been under stress." I stare at the window, the cold light slicing across my desk. "I see," I say slowly. "And what did she hope to accomplish by calling you?" She didn't say directly. But given our mutual professional circles, I wanted to reach out to you before rumors gained traction. I force a small laugh. "That's appreciated. For the record, I'm not writing about her or her organization. My current assignment is on broadband policy, not philanthropy, but I am a journalist, and I value transparency." Catherine hums softly, considering. "I thought as much. Your series last year showed real integrity. I'm glad to hear you're settling in. Still, I imagine it's uncomfortable having family overlap with your work." You could say that I reply, and the understatement nearly makes me laugh. When we hang up, I sit back and breathe. It's happening. Vivian's quiet war of whispers. She can't control me directly anymore, so she's circling the perimeter, planting seeds of doubt in anyone who might validate me. Before the day ends, I compose an email to Frank subject, quick heads up, possible calls. Hi Frank, I wanted to note something in case it crosses your radar. My mother, Maren Whitaker, chairs a Vermont-based foundation with ties to the Morrison Group. We're estranged, and she's been contacting some of my professional connections suggesting I'm unstable. There's no truth to it, but I'd rather you hear it from me than through rumor. I'm fully focused on Herald work and proud to be here. Maren. I hover before hitting send, then press it. A minute later, Frank replies, appreciate the transparency. Everyone's got family. We'll judge you by your work here. That's it. No drama, no condescension. Just steady ground. That evening, I log on to my weekly session with Dr. Kerr. She listens as I recount the calls and my mother's interference, her eyes narrowing slightly, but not in surprise. This is classic escalation, she says. When a controlling person loses access, they shift to reputation sabotage. You handled it perfectly factual, brief, no emotional content. I keep replaying what I could have done differently, I admit. You don't negotiate with rumor, she says. You inoculate against it. Your email did that. She leans closer to the camera. I want you to practice 2 boundary scripts for the next week. Ready? I nod, grabbing my notebook. First, that's inaccurate. Here are the facts. Second, I don't discuss my personal life at work. They sound simple, but they rewire power. I repeat them out loud until they feel natural in my mouth. Dr. Kerr smiles. Good. You're reclaiming the narrative 1 sentence at a time. After the call, I take a long walk through the city. Portland in winter smells like salt and coffee grounds. The streets glisten under half-melted snow, and shop windows glow against the early dark. Freedom feels strange in my body, like I'm still waiting for permission that will never come. The next day, Frank asks if I'd like to join him on a site visit to one of the rural recovery clinic's sister programs to the ones my mother's board oversees in Vermont. We're doing a features piece on community partnerships, he explains. Could use your insight. The clinic sits on the edge of a fishing town, its blue paint fading but clean. Inside, the waiting room hums with quiet resilience, parents with toddlers, a nurse sorting paperwork, a man in a worn jacket reading the sports section. I talk to a counselor named Dana who tells me the funding's been delayed for months. We're holding on by thread, she says. They keep saying the board's reorganizing. Some chairwoman in Vermont wants new reporting metrics before they release grants. My stomach tightens. Of course. Vivian's fingerprints precision disguised as policy. The same efficiency she used to shutter programs that didn't photograph well. When we drive back, I jot notes in my phone. Funding delays, board restructuring, Morrison link Vivian's foundation. The personal and professional lines blur, but this time I'm not the one crossing them. She is. That night, I meet Sophie Tran for dinner in her apartment, a walk-up filled with plants and the smell of pho. Your mom actually called Catherine Morrison? She asks, incredulous. That's nuclear-level networking. I grin weakly. It's her love language. Sophie raises her glass. Then here's to you learning a new one. For a few hours, I let myself forget. We talk about deadlines and landlords, about the feeling of being broke but free. When I leave, the air smells like ocean spray and wood smoke. Saturday morning, I arrive early at the newsroom, the only sound the hum of fluorescent lights. I make coffee, pull up my next draft, and try to focus. But at 9:03 a.m., the intercom crackles. Ms. Whitaker, the receptionist, says, her voice uncertain. There's someone here asking for you. She says it's your mother. She's insisting it's a family emergency. For a second, the room tilts. You're sure? Yes, ma'am. Security's with her now. Should I? Through the glass wall of the newsroom, I can see the lobby downstairs, a flash of camel-colored wool, perfectly styled hair, a posture built on command. Even from here, I can feel her authority radiating like heat. The security guard looks up at me, waiting for a signal. My hands tremble, but not from fear adrenaline. He asks quietly, "Your call, Ms. Whitaker." I meet his eyes through the glass and exhale. For the first time in my life, the choice is actually mine. From the second I step into the Herald lobby, I feel the air shift, like walking into a courtroom mid-verdict. The glass doors flash with reflected light from the snow outside, and there she is, my mother, immaculate as ever, commanding the room with posture alone. Vivian Whitaker doesn't raise her voice often, but when she does, people listen. Even the security guard looks like he's afraid to interrupt her performance. "Mom," I say, keeping my voice low calm, "you can't just show up here." Her head whips toward me, her expression a perfect blend of wounded dignity and simmering authority. "Thank God. I've been worried sick." She says it loud enough for everyone to hear. Two reporters on the couch glance up from their phones. The receptionist, Sandra, pretends to shuffle papers, but doesn't blink. "There's no emergency," I tell the guard. "It's fine. I'll handle it." Vivian exhales in visible relief, as if my compliance is proof I'm still manageable. "We need to talk privately," she says, gripping the strap of her designer purse like a weapon. "This isn't the place," I answer, voice still even. Her eyes narrow, scanning my blouse, my slacks, the press badge clipped to my pocket. "This is where you work now. In this." I feel the eyes of the newsroom on the other side of the glass colleagues frozen mid-conversation, waiting for me to crack. "Mom, please lower your voice." "You're not well, Maren," she says suddenly, loud enough to echo. "You walked out on Christmas. You're isolating yourself. You've refused every call. Your father and I are terrified." The guard clears his throat. "Ma'am, maybe you should—" "Don't interrupt me," she snaps, and the tone she uses on board members slices through the air. I can practically feel the ripple of whispers upstairs. I take one breath, then another. Dr. Kerr's words echo in my mind. "That's inaccurate. Here are the facts." "That's not true," I say clearly. "I'm perfectly fine. I'm working, I'm healthy, and you are disrupting my workplace." Her face freezes. The word disrupting hits her like a slap. It's beneath her, a word reserved for protesters or children. Frank Webster appears at the mezzanine railing above us, his hands in his pockets, his expression unreadable. "Everything okay, Maren?" he calls. I tilt my head up. "I'm handling it, thanks." He nods once. "Good. Handle it how you need to." That simple sentence tilts the whole axis of the room. For the first time in my life, an authority figure, one older male and respected, sides with me over her. The realization flickers across her face like a crack in glass. She turns back to me, voice dropping to a hiss. "You're humiliating yourself." "And me. I'm just setting boundaries," I reply. Her hand trembles slightly, the only betrayal of emotion. Then, as if remembering her audience, she draws herself taller. "Maren, I am your mother. You will come home and apologize." "I'm not coming home," I say. "Maren's security," Frank says quietly to the guard. "Stand by, please." The guard moves closer, and Mom's eyes widen, not in fear, but in outrage. "You'd call security on me?" "You came here uninvited, accusing me of being unstable," I say. "That's harassment, not concern." Something in my tone, steady, measured, breaks the illusion. Her face flushes and she takes a step back. "You're making a mistake," she says softer now. "You don't understand what's happening." My phone buzzes in my pocket. I glance at the screen. Dad. I hit answer, turning on speaker before I can think better of it. "Dad, I'm in the middle of something." "Vivian." His voice booms through the phone, startling everyone. "What are you doing?" "The Herald called me. They said you're creating a scene." Her face drains of color. "You spoke to them?" "I did," he says, audibly furious. "And I'm done covering for you. I canceled the country club membership. You can explain that to your friends." The silence that follows is nuclear. Every head in the lobby swivels toward her. Her mouth opens, then closes again. "Robert," she says, voice shaking for the first time I can remember. You can't! But the call cuts off. I end it and slip the phone into my pocket. My heart pounds, but not from fear, from a strange electric clarity. The foundation of her control money perception status is fracturing in real time. She stares at me as if seeing me for the first time. What have you done to him? Nothing, I say. He just stopped pretending. Her jaw tightens, and for a moment I think she'll leave. But she squares her shoulders again, trying to regain altitude. You're destroying our family. Everything I've built. You built a cage, I say quietly. You just hated that I found the key. Sandra, the receptionist, shifts awkwardly. I nod to her. Please call security to escort my mother out. Vivian turns toward the guard, her voice suddenly brittle. You don't need to do that. I'm leaving. She walks to the door in controlled steps, coat draped over her arm like armor. Before she pushes through the glass, she pauses. You'll regret this, Maren. I manage a small professional smile. You've said that before. The door closes behind her. The room exhales. Sandra mutters, Holy hell. Upstairs, someone claps, once soft, ironic. I turn toward Frank, still at the railing. You okay? He calls down. I will be, I say. He nods. Take the rest of the day. In the silence that follows, my phone buzzes again. A new message from Catherine Morrison. Just saw the commotion on the Herald feed. We should talk. Call me when you can. I call her from the break room, the fluorescent lights humming overhead. Her tone is careful. Maren, I wanted you to hear this from me before the papers do. Your mother's board is voting next week, January 4th, on a resource consolidation measure. On paper, it's efficiency. In practice, it will close at least one rural recovery clinic, maybe more. My chest tightens. You mean the same clinic we visited last week? Yes, the one hanging by a thread. If that vote passes, their overdose response program dies with it. I lean against the counter, gripping the edge to stay steady. Why would she do that? Optics? Catherine says simply. The board wants to appear fiscally responsible. Your mother carries the deciding vote. The call ends. I stand there, staring at my reflection in the vending machine glass, my pulse still pounding from the confrontation. For years, I thought her control stopped with me, with my choices, my relationships, my career. Now I see it's bigger. She's rewriting the narratives of entire communities the same way she rewrote mine. The thought burns cold and clean through me. If she can rewrite my story, what is she rewriting for the whole town? The clinic in Kittery doesn't smell like medicine. It smells like coffee, bleach, and exhaustion. The fluorescent lights flicker above the waiting area, where a nurse holds a clipboard like a shield. When I flash my press badge, her shoulders tense. We've had reporters before, she says. They show up, take pictures of peeling paint, then vanish. I'm not here for the paint, I tell her. I'm here for the paper trail. Liam stands beside me, camera bag slung over his shoulder. He looks out of place in this world of cracked linoleum and bruised optimism. Still, he knows how to fade into the background, quiet lens, steady hands. The nurse eyes us uncertain, then nods toward a narrow hallway. Talk to Dana. She's been here since the beginning. Dana's office is the size of a pantry, her desk buried under folders. Funding's the issue, she says flatly. It used to come through on schedule. Then last year, everything slowed to a crawl. We were told to submit new performance metrics, community engagement surveys, branding reports, even photo documentation. She laughs bitterly. Do you know how hard it is to photograph sobriety? I jot notes. Who pushed for that change board in Vermont, she says. Chairwoman Whitaker. My pen stops mid-scratch. Vivian Whitaker. She nods. We were told it would ensure accountability. What it ensured was burnout. Staff quit. Grants froze. We lost our outreach coordinator in May. I thank her promised discretion and move to the next room. Liam snaps photos of empty supply shelves, handwritten schedules, volunteers brewing coffee for clients who can't afford prescriptions. Every image feels like evidence. By afternoon, we're interviewing EMTs at a nearby firehouse. One of them, a man named Blake, leans against his truck, jaw tight. "We used to drop people here after overdoses," he says. They had a quick intake protocol nurse on call. "Since funding delays, we've lost 3 this winter." He doesn't look at me when he says it. He doesn't need to. The number hangs in the cold air like a ghost. Next, we visit the town pharmacist, a wiry woman named Celeste, who keeps a ledger of naloxone kits distributed. "Look," she says, flipping through pages smudged with coffee stains. "We used to get quarterly shipments. Last one came 6 months late." When I asked why, they said something about program realignment. "Who told you that?" I ask. "A woman from the Foundation's Vermont office," she says. "Paige something." I freeze. "Paige Whitaker." Celeste nods. "Yeah," said she was working on a consolidation proposal. Back in the car, I stare at the horizon, the ocean gray and endless. Paige. My sister. I knew she worked under Mom's umbrella, but I didn't think she had her fingerprints on this. "Maybe it's procedural," Liam says carefully. "Maybe she doesn't know the impact." "Paige knows everything," I whisper. That night, I sit at the kitchen table with my laptop, the glow from the screen painting the room in cold light. I file a Freedom of Information request for the Foundation's communications with the Morrison Initiative. I don't expect results fast, but within days, Catherine Morrison calls. "Maren, I don't know what you're digging into," she says, "but I'm getting pushback. Be careful." "I'm always careful," I lie. 3 days later, the documents arrive, hundreds of pages of sanitized email threads and polished memos. Buried near the end, I find what I was hoping for and dreading: a chain of emails between Paige Whitaker and a consultant group called Armitage Strategic Partners. The subject line: Community Resource Consolidation. In one message, Paige writes, "The optics of closure will be tricky. Recommend framing it as sustainability through efficiency." Attached is a draft statement. By focusing on high-performing urban centers, we can maximize donor impact. It's corporate language for abandonment. I scroll further. Another email, this one forwarded from my mother. "We need stable partners who share our vision of responsible stewardship. Armitage's redevelopment plan could turn liabilities into long-term assets." A later message confirms my worst suspicion: Vivian's donor circle stands to profit from repurposing the clinic property into mixed-use housing. The land beneath the recovery center isn't just community space, it's prime real estate near the new rail line. I push my chair back, stomach twisting. Paige's fiancé's firm, Hollingsworth and Evers, is listed as the advisory council for Armitage, the same man whose ring caught the light at dinner. Liam looks up from the couch where he's sorting photos. "You found something." "Conflict of interest," I say, direct and deliberate. He sets the camera down, watching me pace. "You're sure?" I scroll through the attachments again. Emails, signatures, timestamps. She drafted the language. Mom sold it. The fiancé profits from the fallout. He exhales slowly. That's not just bad ethics. That's criminal territory. I nod. And it's happening under the guise of helping people. We stay up past midnight, cross-referencing board minutes, property records, and donor correspondence. A pattern emerges: grants reallocated, community redevelopment projects pitched with photo ops, glossy brochures, showing volunteers smiling under banners that say "Recovery through Renewal." None of it matches the reality we saw today, the clinic held together by duct tape and goodwill. I type faster, assembling a rough outline of what will become an investigative feature: dates, quotes, financial trails, human costs. Each detail sharpens my anger into precision. This isn't about revenge, I say aloud, mostly to convince myself. It's about truth. Liam doesn't argue. He just refills my coffee and sits beside me, reading line by line. At dawn, the first draft sprawls across my screen, half notes, half fury. The headline on my sticky note reads, "The Cost of Appearances." I print the most damning emails and staple them together. The sound of metal punching through paper echoes like a gavel. I think of Mom's words at Christmas, "If you chase this, don't come back." She thought she was protecting her world from my independence. She didn't realize I was about to expose the world she built on other people's suffering. The morning light seeps through the blinds, soft and gray. I line the printed pages on the table, evidence of a legacy collapsing under its own weight. Every email, every signature, every dollar trail receipts of what happens when power masquerades as virtue. And for the first time in weeks, I know exactly what story I need to tell. By Monday morning, the newsroom feels like a storm system, quiet air charged with pressure. My story draft sits on Frank's desk, thick with annotations and sticky notes. The title bar glows on the screen between us, "The Cost of Appearances." He leans back in his chair, reading the last paragraph, then looks at me over his glasses. "You understand what this means, right?" I nod. "It'll burn bridges. Probably bloodlines." He exhales through his nose. "Then we do it clean." He swivels toward the legal counsel's office. "Let's bring in Martin." Within an hour, I'm sitting in a glass conference room under fluorescent light, my pages spread across the table like crime scene evidence. Martin, the Herald's legal advisor, is a soft-spoken man who looks like he's made entirely of patience. "Let's talk conflict of interest first," he says. "I disclosed it," I reply. "My mother chairs the board. My sister drafted the consolidation language. But I can corroborate everything with public documents, independent sources, and Morrison's own emails." Frank nods. "I'll assign a co-byline. Your access and research stay. We add an ethics note up top. Total transparency." Martin adjusts his glasses. "Good. We're not here to accuse. We're here to verify. Stick to what's provable." That word provable lodges in my chest like a weight and a weapon. By noon, we're deep in edits. Frank trims adjectives, parries emotion to data. I spend an hour confirming every timestamp, hyperlinking every citation. The piece shifts from accusation to anatomy, a meticulous dissection of how a foundation built on charity became an engine for image management. Dr. Kerr calls during my late lunch. "How are you holding up?" "I'm functional," I say, stirring coffee that's gone cold. She studies me from the other side of the screen, eyes, calm, voice even. "This is what we call an extinction burst. When someone like your mother feels her control slipping, she'll escalate. Expect manipulation, smear, panic, guilt all at once. I'm already there. Then keep breathing. Boundaries aren't cruel, they're moral." I jot that down. Boundaries are moral. By late afternoon, the first tremors arrive. My phone lights up with a message from Mom. "Vivian, if you print, you destroy this family." A minute later, another notification. Page. Please, Maren, not before the vote. You don't understand what's at stake." I stare at the words, thumbs hovering. My instinct is to explain, justify, soften the edges, but that's the old reflex, the one built on permission. Instead, I open a new note on my phone and type the responses I'll never send. I understand exactly what's at stake. Integrity. Lives. The difference between accountability and image. Then I close the app. When I return to the newsroom, the final read-through is underway. Frank's at his desk, red pen in hand. "You're sure about your sister's involvement?" he asks quietly. "Yes," I say. "I have her original draft in the FOIA batch." He nods, underlining a line near the end. "The clinic's closure, presented as fiscal efficiency, would eliminate critical overdose response programs serving rural Maine and northern Vermont. This paragraph," he says, "is why we're running it. It's not about family drama. It's about the cost of looking good instead of doing good." "That's the point," I whisper. When the sun sets, the newsroom glows in a wash of computer light. Reporters type quietly, the hum of urgency everywhere. I walk to the break room for more coffee, watching the headlines scroll across muted televisions, politics storms, market dips, lives unfolding. Somewhere in that rotation, mine will join them. At 7, Frank calls everyone to gather around the main desk. We're publishing this Wednesday, he announces. Co-byline, Maren Whitaker and James O'Neill. Ethics disclosure up top. Every quote triple-sourced. Every number verified. He looks at me. You did the work. Now stand by it. I nod. My pulse feels like electricity under my skin. That night, I call Liam. It's happening, I say. I'll be there Wednesday morning with my camera, he replies. Whatever comes next, we document it. Dr. Kerr's voice echoes in my head again. Expect escalation. She's right. At 10 p.m., my inbox pings. An email from an address I recognize instantly, Hollingsworth and Evers LLP. Paige's fiancé's firm. The subject line reads formal notice, potential defamation, and breach of privacy. Attached is a PDF stamped cease and desist. The letter claims the Herald's forthcoming story contains unsubstantiated allegations that may irreparably harm reputations and client relationships. It demands we halt publication pending mutual review. I forward it to Frank with no comment. 2 minutes later, he walks over to my desk, the letter printed in his hand. He doesn't look angry, just focused. You knew this was coming, he says. I did. He sets the pages down. They're bluffing. The moment they sent this, they confirmed authenticity of the documents, and they're doing it through a family connection. That's intimidation, not litigation. His calm steadies me. Still, I say, should we pause? Frank studies me. What do you think I think of the EMT's voice breaking as he described losing patients? I think of Dana, the clinic coordinator, her trembling hands flipping through unpaid invoices. I think of my mother's voice at Christmas telling me I was dead to her for choosing something real. We run it, I say. Frank nods. Good answer. He glances back toward Martin's office. We'll tighten the sourcing one more time just in case, but remember the rule, Whitaker. We only print what we can prove. We can prove a lot. Exactly. He leaves the letter on my desk. The paper feels heavier than it should. I fold it once and slip it into my notebook, underlined notes about dignity and stewardship pressed against its legal threats. Outside, snow falls in lazy spirals past the newsroom windows. For a moment, the world feels strangely quiet, like the pause before thunder. The cursor on my screen blinks, waiting. I type one final line in my notes. Truth isn't a weapon. It's a mirror. When the story runs, it won't just reflect them. It will reflect me, the woman who finally stopped asking for permission to tell it. The Herald servers hum like a heartbeat in the dark. At 6 a.m., the story goes live. The cost of appearances splashed across the homepage with 2 bylines, mine and James O'Neill's. Beneath it, the photos and EMT's tired eyes under fluorescent light, a farmer holding his dead son's work gloves, a pharmacist's handwritten naloxone ledger lit by flashlight during a power outage. By sunrise, my inbox is chaos messages from reporters, local officials, strangers. Praise, fury, disbelief. How could the Whitakers thank you for saying what we couldn't? You just ended your career. The Morrison Foundation board meeting is at 10. Liam drives while I stare out at the harbor gray water thrashing against the docks. My phone buzzes, nonstop texts from unknown numbers, missed calls from home. One voicemail from Paige. I don't open. The Herald's story has already spread. By the time we reach the foundation building, cameras swarm the steps. The lobby smells like coffee and nerves. Protesters line the hallway, mothers holding framed photos, paramedics in uniform, clinic volunteers wearing homemade pins that read, "Keep them alive." When I step through the doors, the crowd parts slightly. Not applause recognition, the kind that feels like pressure. Inside, the boardroom hums with quiet panic. Frosted glass, chrome fixtures, the harbor stretching beyond floor-to-ceiling windows. Every chair filled, every eye alert. Catherine Morrison stands at the head of the table, calm but stern, a copy of the Herald folded in front of her. My mother sits 3 seats down, posture perfect, face porcelain smooth. Beside her, Paige keeps checking her phone, eyes red. I sit in the press row along the wall, notebook, ready, voice recorder blinking red. My pulse taps against my ribs like a ticking clock. Catherine clears her throat. Before we begin, I'd like to acknowledge this morning's Herald article. She gestures to the printed pages. The reporting raises serious concerns about transparency and oversight within our funding processes. Vivian leans forward, voice velvet and steel. That piece is slanderous. My daughter has chosen to weaponize personal grievances against her own family. None of it reflects the Foundation's integrity. Catherine's gaze doesn't waver. Mrs. Whitaker, the documents are authentic. We verified the email chains. The board murmurs. My recorder captures every whisper. Vivian adjusts her pearl earring. Emails taken out of context. Every organization discusses efficiency. You can twist any administrative phrase to sound sinister. Across the table, a man in a tan suit raises his hand. Efficiency. The story cites loss of life linked to funding delays. Are we disputing that? Paige speaks up, voice trembling. Those deaths weren't our fault. There were other factors, staff turnover, state budget cuts, Catherine interrupts. Regardless, the article names specific delays tied to this board's restructuring votes. We owe the public clarity. The tension thickens until even the air feels brittle. Vivian's expression hardens. This is a witch hunt, led by an unstable young woman who has made a career of dramatizing tragedy. Every head turns toward me. The old instinct to shrink, apologize, flickers and dies. I stand, notebook steady in my hand. You're referring to me, I say. For transparency, I disclosed our relationship in the ethics note. Every claim in that article was independently verified by multiple sources, including staff members who risked their jobs to speak out. Sit down, Maren, she says, her voice sharp. I'm not part of your board, Mother, I reply. You don't get to tell me what to do here. Gasps ripple through the room, quiet, stunned. Catherine taps her pen against the table. Perhaps we should hear the relevant section directly. She turns to a board member near the end, an older man with reading glasses. He flips through his packet and reads aloud, Internal correspondence between Chairwoman Vivian Whitaker, Director Paige Whitaker, and consulting firm Armitage Strategic Partners reveals coordination between donor interests and the proposed consolidation plan. The property designated for closure overlaps with pending redevelopment projects represented by Hollingsworth and Evers LLP, the firm engaged to advise on land repurposing. The words echo, metallic and damning. Silence follows, so heavy it feels physical. Then, like glass shattering, someone exhales too loudly. Paige drops her pen. That's enough. Catherine folds her hands. No, Ms. Whitaker. It isn't. We must discuss whether a conflict of interest compromised the board's decision-making process. Vivian's composure fractures just a crack, but enough. Her chin lifts in defiance. Our name is on this building, she says, each word precise and trembling. From the back of the room, a woman's voice cuts through the stillness. So is my child's. All eyes turn. A mother from the clinic hallway stands in the doorway, clutching a framed photo of a boy no older than 15. He died waiting for medicine you called inefficient. No one moves. The photo shakes in her hands. Catherine's voice, when it comes, is low but firm. We will vote on the motion to postpone the consolidation and authorize an independent audit of all related decisions. Vivian starts to speak, but Catherine raises a hand. Enough. The community deserves truth before we decide anything further. The vote begins, 11 members, one by one. Hands rise slowly, aye. The rhythm builds. When it reaches Vivian, her hand stays frozen. Catherine looks at her. Mrs. Whitaker. Vivian's lips part, but no sound comes. Paige's eyes dart to her, pleading. Finally, Vivian lowers her hand. Voice a whisper, nay. The motion passes 8-3. Applause erupts from the hallway, muffled but fierce. Catherine wraps her pen against the table. Motion approved. Emergency bridge funding will be reinstated immediately. Audit to commence Monday. The meeting adjourns in chaos. Papers rustling, reporters shouting questions. Vivian stands slowly, color draining from her face. When she reaches me, she doesn't bother to whisper. "You did this to me," she hisses, eyes gleaming with fury. I meet her gaze steady. "I did this for them." For the first time, she doesn't have a reply. Cameras flash as she turns sharply toward the door. Paige follows, but not before glancing back at me, fear, shame, maybe envy flickering in her eyes. Outside the glass walls, townspeople press closer, faces lit by phone screens and winter light. When Vivian emerges, the crowd parts down the middle. No one claps, no one jeers. They simply step aside, letting her pass like a queen without a throne. She moves through them chin high, but I see the tremor in her hand. The flashbulbs pop, and for a heartbeat I think of that perfect Christmas table, silver gleaming, everything arranged for display. Now the display has cracked wide open and the truth is spilling out for everyone to see. Catherine joins me by the doorway. "You realize this isn't over," she says quietly. "I know. She'll retaliate. She always does." Catherine studies me for a long moment. "Still good work, Ms. Whitaker. Journalism like that saves lives." The words land softly, but their weight anchors me. As I pack my notebook, I glance back through the glass wall. The harbor stretches gray and endless beyond the windows, waves slamming against the pier. Mom's reflection fades into that cold light as she disappears into the crowd. And in the silence that follows, one thought burns through everything else. If she can rewrite my story, what has she already rewritten for the whole town? Weeks pass, and the noise settles into a steady hum. The clinic's lights stay on under the audit doors, propped with a rubber wedge, coffee always brewing. A paper sign on the wall reads, "Bridge funding approved, services continue." Every time I see it, my lungs loosen a little. In the same breath, new edges cut. Paige's engagement announcement disappears from social feeds without comment. Someone mails me the society page with her ring finger blurred out in Sharpie. Dad texts short updates that feel like postcards from a new country started therapy, 3rd session. It's clarifying. I read the words 3 times, stunned by their plainness. He doesn't apologize. He doesn't explain. He just tells the truth, and somehow that is enough. Vivian issues a statement 2 days after the vote. 3 paragraphs of corporate lace. We take these concerns seriously. We remain steadfast in our mission. We welcome an independent review. She refuses every interview request. Her friends fracture into camps. The loyalists repeat phrases about stewardship and responsibility. The defectors call me privately and say, "We wondered for years if we were funding photos, not people." The in-betweeners send me emails with subject lines like "concerned" and "complicated" and sign off with "warmly." Hate mail arrives too. Thick envelopes with my name pressed into the paper like a bruise, "Traitor Ghoul daughter" in name only. One card is just a typed line. "You will answer for what you've done." Then on Wednesday, a stranger leaves a casserole on the Herald's reception desk with a sticky note for the reporter who kept the clinic open. A grateful aunt. Sandra keeps it in the office fridge until the newsroom breaks into it with plastic forks. Frank buys cheap cupcakes that taste like sugar and relief. No speeches, just the sound of people chewing and the long, companionable silence of earned respect. James taps his cup against mine. "Nice work, partner." The word lands soft and solid. At night, I dream in emails and thresholds. In one, the door to my mother's house is glass, and I walk right through it without cracking. In another, the clinic's hallway stretches to a horizon, and people line both sides passing pill bottles and blankets hand to hand like a bucket brigade. On a Saturday morning, Paige calls and doesn't hang up. Her voice is raw from crying. We meet in a park where the snow has receded into dirty islands, bench slats damp through my coat. She looks younger without the engagement ring, as if weight has left one finger and found her eyes. I'm sorry, she starts, words tumbling. I kept telling myself I was helping Mom keep things stable. I thought control was love. I thought approval was safety, I say. We stare at the bare trees. A runner's breath ghosts by. He ended it, she says finally. Said my priorities were incompatible with his firm's risk profile. She tries to laugh and fails. I wrote that language, Mare. I drafted the words that would have closed the clinic. I can't stop hearing that mother in the boardroom. Then hear her, I say. My voice surprises me, gentle, not triumphant. And do something with what you heard. She nods, biting her lip hard enough to blanch it. I started volunteering at the clinic audit. Data entry. It's not penance. I just want to be useful, I finish. Her hand finds mine. For once, touch means nothing we can't say. We part without promises, just the quiet agreement that honesty is the only currency we'll accept from each other now. The town answers in the way towns do when no one is coming to save them. Retirees with minivans make a transportation network on a spreadsheet someone prints and tapes to the clinic door. Monday, Kathy. Tuesday, Jerome. Wednesday, Luis. A fisherman named Nate brings in coolers of chowder at noon. A high school civics club organizes an naloxone night, training 50 people in an hour in a church basement that smells like lemon oil and old hymnals. It feels unmistakably American, neighbors stepping in when systems stall, dignity measured in casseroles and rides, and names learned at the reception desk. One evening, Liam and I walk the Eastern Prom as the sky bruises purple. He stops by a railing where the harbor winds bite through our coats and takes a small velvet box from his pocket. I laugh without meaning to. Isn't this where the tourists do it? We're sentimental in our own way, he says, opening the box to reveal a vintage ring, an unusual green stone, soft as sea glass set with tiny pearls that look like commas. Preneat. They say it helps you let go of what no longer serves you. The wind steals my answer for a second, and then I find it. Yes. He slides it onto my finger, and it sits there, like it belongs not a crown, but a talisman. It tells your story, he murmurs, not hers. We celebrate with cheap tie in cardboard boxes, knees touching on the couch. My phone buzzes with a photo from Paige, her, in a clinic t-shirt, hair tied back, a faint smile that looks earned, not performed. Trying her text reads. I send back a heart and nothing else. The audit drags into its third week, a slow grind of numbers and interviews. The donor circle keeps splitting. I write follow-ups that read more like court transcripts than victory laps. Frank calls my drafts cold fire. Dr. Kerr tells me my nervous system will take time to learn peace, that calm can feel like loss to people raised on adrenaline. She's right. Some nights I mistake quiet for danger, and have to talk myself down, hand flat to my chest like a metronome. Dad invites me for coffee some weekend soon, and for once I don't hear the old evasion. Instead, I hear a man practicing new words in a mirror. I print that text and keep it in my wallet like a ticket I can cash when I'm ready. One afternoon, a woman from the transportation network stops me in the clinic's entryway. You don't know me, she says, handing me a folded schedule, but my sister got a ride last week. First intake in months. We keep her in our rotation now. She taps the paper like a pledge. We've got her. I walk outside and cry behind the dumpster heat rising off my face in the cold. Not because I'm sad, but because sometimes relief breaks you open before it heals you. When I get home, a certified letter leans against my apartment door like a soldier at attention. The return address is my mother's attorney. I stand in the hallway, coat still on bag slung over my shoulder, and slide a finger under the seal. Then I stop. I don't have to know today. I turn the envelope over and press it flat against the counter, the gold notary seal catching a stripe of winter sun. Somewhere a gull cries. The radiator ticks. The clinic's phone will ring again in the morning, and someone will answer because the lights are still on. I brew tea, set the letter under a stack of drafts, and watch the steam rise until it disappears. I don't open it. Not yet. Dawn in Portland has a kind of honesty you can't fake, cold, salt-tinged, unapologetically clear. My studio smells like coffee and printer ink. The floor is half covered in drafts, color-coded tabs marking what's done and what still needs trimming. On the windowsill sits a binder labeled Rural Resilience Series, Phase 1 Metrics. The numbers are small but alive: overdose reversals up, volunteer hours tripled, grant renewals in process. Proof that work, when untethered from performance, can actually heal. I open the window an inch. The air slices in bright and sharp. Somewhere below, a bus hisses to a stop, a gull screams over the harbor, and someone laughs a sound so ordinary it feels revolutionary. I used to think revenge meant torching everything that hurt you. Now, I understand it can also mean refusing to be smaller than your truth. What I kept: my byline, my voice, my neighbors, the smell of the ocean in the morning, the clack of newsroom keyboards when a story finally lands. What I let go: the version of love that demanded silence, the reflex to apologize for existing too brightly. The binder catches the light, each page a ledger of survival disguised as journalism. Liam sleeps on the couch, half under a quilt, his camera bag propped like a sentinel. The ring on my finger glows green in the dawn. It's not a symbol of conquest, but continuity, something living that keeps growing even after the fire. At 8, I meet Dad at a cafe near the water. He's early, hair mussed by the wind, 2 coffees already on the table. For once, he doesn't look like he's bracing for impact. "I read your last piece," he says. "It was fair." "Fair's good," I answer, smiling. He takes a breath. "I should have said something back then. When your mother said those things, when she froze you out, I thought staying neutral kept peace." He stirs his coffee, eyes fixed on the spoon. It didn't. It just made silence the loudest person in the room. I let the quiet stretch before answering. "You're speaking now. That counts for something." He nods, the corners of his mouth lifting, trying to learn. When he leaves, he squeezes my shoulder, not as apology, but acknowledgement. It feels heavier and truer than I expected. At home, my phone pings. Paige again. A photo: her in a bright orange safety vest, handing out naloxone kits at the clinic's weekend drive. Underneath, a message, trying to be useful. I text back, "You are." 10 minutes later, another envelope slides through my mail slot, white, unmarked. Inside is a small card on thick cream paper. 3 lines, neat handwriting I know, like muscle memory. "I disagree with what you did. I recognize what it did. V. No love. No mom." I read it twice. It doesn't sting, not really. It's a statement of fact, not affection. But it's honest, and honesty from her feels like a new dialect. I file the card in a folder marked "Correspondence Keep" for context. Not closure, but progress. Outside, the sunlight sharpens on the harbor. Gulls dive between masts. I brew another cup of coffee, set my grant proposal on the table, and check the final paragraph. The project pitch reads, "A solutions journalism series exploring how rural communities rebuild trust in health systems through local action, cooperation, and courage." I print it, sign my name, and slide it into an envelope. For a moment, I trace the edge with my thumb, thinking of all the letters that came before: legal notices, PR statements, ultimatums. This one is different. It's not a demand. It's an offering. I grab my coat and step outside. The street is wet from overnight rain. Puddles mirror the sky. Down the block, a kid in a red jacket pedals too fast through one, spraying arcs of water that sparkle like glass. He shouts something, joy, maybe a name, and the sound echoes off the brick facades. I breathe it in. The air smells like salt and newsprint, beginnings and aftermath. There's a freedom in inventorying your life, naming what stays and what goes, what deserves space and what never did. I used to think family was something fixed, inherited like bone. Now I know it's a verb. Something you build, lose, and sometimes rebuild again, not for image, not for power, but because we owe each other better than pretending. Inside my bag, the envelope rustles a small sound, almost shy. I drop it into the blue mailbox at the corner, watch it disappear into the dark slot. The grant will fund 3 more months of coverage, 3 more towns, dozens more names. I turn toward the harbor, the light widening with the day. Behind me, the newsroom will wake soon. The clinic will open. Somewhere in Vermont, my mother will water her perfect houseplants and maybe, just maybe, pause a moment longer than before. The gulls wheel overhead. The cold catches in my throat and comes out as a laugh. I start walking toward the office, shoes slapping wet pavement. The city alive with small mercies, coffee steam, fairy horns, people going somewhere. I didn't burn the bridge. I drew a map around it and watched a town cross. As dawn settles over Portland, Maren exhales her story, no longer a secret, but a stand. Freedom didn't come from destruction, it came from documentation, from refusing silence. If this story moved you, subscribe for more narratives where justice meets choice, and leave a comment telling us what stood out most. We read every comment, every time. Thank you for listening. This has been a story from Revenge Hour. We'll see you next time.